Yes,
Good evening to everyone. Welcome you all in this 2 days international conference on language, literature and linguistics organized by Department of English, Kanda Swami Kandahar College, Waller, Namakkal, Tamil Nadu, India in collaboration with Cape Comorin Trust India and Cape Comorin Publisher India. I would like to share some information regarding this session, this 9 technical session with you all. In this session, we have 9 paper presentations. Each paper presenter will be given only 6 to 7 minutes. We will do discussion on all the topics in the end of this session. So we have a lot to cover in this session. So we really should begin. I would like to invite Dr. Pavanjit Bali, Assistant Professor English, GCW, Bhagwati Nagar, Jammu, to present the paper on the topic Marginalization of the Subaltern Double in Burma's Kuruku. Over to you, Dr. Pavanjit Bali, sir.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Sorry, ma'am.
No, it's all
Sorry.
no, it's perfectly all right, ma'am. So, good evening, everyone. Should I begin with it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. As the title of my paper is Marginalization of the Subaltern Doubled in Burma's Karuku, Dr. Ambedkar's movement found a parallel in writing, that is, the Dalit literature, which were aimed at bringing about psychosocial transformation. This helped the people in the margins to fight against all atrocities. Dalit autobiographies are microcosm that represent the lives of the Dalits at large. Bama's Karuku brought about with it a whirlwind of change and captured immediate attention of the readers. Bama is the first Dalit woman writer in India. With the encouragement of her friend, she wrote her first novel, Karuku, in 1992. It is an elegy to the community in which Bama grew up. Kuruku is an autobiographical picture of the author's childhood experiences as a female who belongs to the Dalit community. It acted like a powerful voice of the Dalit consciousness and the bitter life led by her and the Dalit women at large. Through this novel, Bama tried to convey the fact that Dalit women are not only the victims of caste but also patriarchy. Bama has shown the plight of Dalit women, the way they are treated, their sufferings, the discrimination at the hands of the upper caste, as well as their patriarchs. Karuku becomes her testimony, and like it represents the humiliation she faced throughout her period of education and when she worked in the convent. And Tamil Dalit novelist Bama writes about the caste discrimination and all the injustices she faced in school and college. And at the age of 26, she became a nun. But due to the discrimination at the convent, she left it after a couple of years. In this novel, Bama presents the inescapability of the caste oppression. She had many bitter experiences. On one particular day, she was blamed for stealing a coconut from school, which of course had been stolen by some other child. The headmaster scolded her and insulted Bama in front of all the children. He said, "You have shown your true nature as a pariah." Bama notes, "What did it mean when they call us pariah? Had the name become that obscene? But we too are human beings. Our people should never run these petty errands for these fellows. We should work in their fields, take home our wages, and leave it at that." Unquote. Bama narrates the story of pain and suffering. It talks about the story of a survivor who filled her heart with a desire to fight against the system that degrades her identity. She doesn't want to be a suppressed, but she wanted to be considered equal. She stood against those norms and was not frightened of the caste system. The opening chapter begins with the introduction of the people and the village. Bama traces the geographical details of the village and how her village was segregated along the caste lines with clear-cut demarcation being made to protect the purity of the upper caste from the physical touch of the untouchable communities. Bama showed how Dalits were forcibly kept within the ghettos by the dominant communities by strictly controlling the physical movement of the former. To the east of the village lays the cemetery. The Dalits of the village live next to that and are treated as dead. She wrote, the upper caste communities and the lower caste communities were never allowed to see themselves and stayed within their own boundaries. She even sarcastically remarked that touch of Dalits is seen as defiling and ritually polluting for the upper caste groups. This forces Bama to assert that we too are humans and should be treated with respect and dignity. Dalits are hardly given a dignified spatial location to live, and this discrimination could be traced to the general ignorance of the society about the well being of the marginalized groups and how stepmother like outlook forces Dalits to inhabit the most unhygienic and inhospitable territorial locations. Wankhede commented, for these communities, the idea of citizenship is farcical, as the dominant social and economic order hardly allows them to operate as free beings. Unquote. Bama's Kuruku focuses on two aspects, namely caste and religion, that brought great agony and turmoil in Bama's life. In this book, the journey of Bama from childhood to adulthood is described. When Bama was studying in third standard, she saw an elderly man carrying a package without directly touching it. Quote, he came along holding out the parcel by its string without touching it. I stood there thinking myself, if he holds it like that, won't the package come under and the vadai fall out? Later on, Bama realized that her community and some others were prohibited by Hinduism and were cursed to remain poor, cloth washers, cobblers, and were engaged in activities like grave digging, drum beat announcing, cleaning of dead animals, and other menial jobs. Bama tries to assert her identity, portrays how people are identified by their street names, and discusses the life of a Dalit Catholic Christian woman in retrospect and in her contemporary era. She portrays the prejudices based on caste leveled upon Dalit children through the warden sister in Kuruku. Quote, these people get nothing to eat at home. They come here and grow fat. Unquote. She describes a society where women were beaten up by their husbands, had to do household chores, did not have access to basic education. The traumas she experiences won't be healed, but she wanted other women to be saved from such a traumatic experience. Bama completed her education and decided to work in a convent. When she started working in the convent, she found that many of the children are ill treated by the nuns. The main reason is because they are converted Christians or Dalits. After seeing all this, she herself becomes a nun. She wanted to save children from the hands of the caste system and violence. Bama stands up for those people who are still under the dark clouds of exploitation by the prevailing so-called high class. In each stage of her life, she felt bad for the way she was discriminated against. She considered writing as a powerful weapon to raise her voice against the class system. It gives the voiceless a voice. She has shared her everyday experiences like, quote, all the time I went to work for the Nikers, I should not touch their goods or chattels. I should never come close to where they were. I should always stand away to one side. Should I continue, ma'am? I'm within the time frame.
Ma'am, we have reached the end of your time slot. So please complete it immediately. Please, ma'am.
Okay, I'll just finish it. Dalits have turned to literature as a space to articulate their resistance and struggles. Karuku denotes pamilya, that is cleaning out, which are like double-edged swords with serrated edges on both sides. The Tamil word karuku includes the word karu, which means embryo or seed, as well as the freshness and novelty. Through Karuku, Bhama symbolizes the notion that when confronted with abuse, Dalits should be like saw-edged palmera leaf. So I'll end it here only, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Dr. Pavanjit Bali, ma'am, you beautifully describe Bama's views. Really very heart-touching story of Bama. Such atrocities in democratic country like India, really it's intolerable and insensitive. But now our constitution has made very strict rule for this. But you beautifully describes Bama's story. Congratulations, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Now, I would like to invite Anjali Kumari Vamma, research scholar, Department of English, Usha Martin University, Ranchi, Jharkhand. Her
Good evening,
topic, her topic is English language, immersion, and primary school English language learners, the psychological impact. Hand it over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am, and good evening, everybody else. Ma'am, I wanted to make this presentation. Should I start my PPT?
Yes, yes, you can, ma'am.
Is it visible to everyone
No, ma'am.
now?
No, it's not visible, ma'am.
Just a second, ma'am.
Okay.
Time नहीं रहता है.
Anjali Kumari Verma, ma'am, if there is any
Yeah, ma'am.
technical issue,
Should I?
would you
Should I?
like to speak without your PPT?
No, ma'am. I would want to show it to everyone and then speak along with it. Should I wait for my turn next?
Yes, yes, you can.
Fix it in the meantime.
Okay, no problem, ma'am.
So sorry for the inconvenience, ma'am.
No issues. Now, I would like to invite Dr. T. Sai Mamata, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Andhra, Loyal College, Vijayawada. Yes. You are present?
Yes,
T. Sai Mamata.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, sorry for the interruption, ma'am. Ma'am, I have
Yes.
registered for this conference, but my name is not in this list. So I have emailed them regarding this. They have instructed me to present in the session 9. So kindly allow me, ma'am. Shall I present?
Yes. What's your name, ma'am?
Shri Priyadarshini, a research scholar from Karunya University, ma'am.
Okay, I have no problem if organizers allow you, then I have no problem. You can present your paper right now.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
Very good evening to all and all. Ma'am, my PPT is visible, ma'am?
Yes. Yes, it's visible, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Very good evening to one and all. I'm Shri Priyadarshini, research scholar of Karunya University, doing under the guidance of Dr. A. Amudha Dhanaraj. First of all, I thank to the conference committee members for accepting my abstract and allowing me to present my paper in two-day international conference on language, literature, and linguistics. So let me move on to my topic, the world of fantasy in Songs of Enchantment and Sugandhi alias Andal Devanayaki. The first slide is about author and a novel. Benokri, 1959 to present Nigerian poet and novelist. Also, he's a Booker Prize winner. His work, Songs of Enchantment, I have taken for my presentation. And T.D. Ramakrishnan, Pathakamangalam Damodaran Ramakrishnan, 1961 to present Indian novelist and translator. And he also won Kerala Sahitya Academy Award. And I have taken his novel, Sugandhi alias Andal Devanayaki. So I have introduction about the Songs of Enchantment and Sugandhi alias Andal Devanayaki. Benokri's Songs of Enchantment is a sequel of The Famished Road. Azaro is a central character and he is an habitual child of Yoruba culture. As well, he had a power to predict the future and lives in an illusionary world. The mythical character possessing some historical and spiritual essence in his life. Then Sugandhi alias Andal Devanayaki, authors T.D. Ramakrishnan and Priya K. Nayars. The plot line alternates between the real and the fantastic, the real and the surreal, the political and the sexual, as well as the suppression of women in ancient times. So Sugandhi is a character, it comes under the reincarnation with the magical elements. Origin of myth. Myths begin with the oral stories in African literature. Myth begins with a storytelling process. It was later referred to as an oral literature. This oral literature conveys the people's tradition, beliefs, and customs. Storytelling is a process of recreating the past in present-day forms. As a result, this type of storytelling process became a myth and belief in African society. In Indian literature, myth was originated in Hinduism in the form of epic poems like Mahabharata, Ramayana, and the Puranas, and the regional literatures like Tamil Periya Purana and Nalayara Divya Prabandham. In a country like ours, where there is not much of historical tradition, myth has become a powerful instrument of preservation of both history and culture. The goal of myth is to bring out the morals of modern society. So the realistic things changed into a myth with the use of magical elements. Here I quoted two quotes. I have quoted here. The first quote is from Songs of Enchantment. So you can see how the realistic things have changed with the use of magical elements. I have read these quotes. The darkness kept opening and shutting. When it opened in a swift deluge of light, I saw a bright city full of sunflower houses and blue streets. And when it shut, the darkness flashed with water. When it opened again, I saw in a crack of incandescence the faces of three white women with disheveled blonde hair and dolphin eyes and bleeding lips. And the second quote is from Sugandhi alias Andal Devanayaki. Shutting her eyes, she prayed to the Trinity. They advised her to sprinkle the water with which she had washed the sage feet on the visitor. When she did so, the Chola emperor became a 6-month-old baby. She took the child in her arms and suckled him. The gods wanted to test Anusha's chastity, and so they came in the guise of sages and asked her to serve food to them naked. She sprinkled the water with which she had washed her husband's feet on them, transforming them into babies. So these quotes speaks about the realistic things which are changed into a myth with the use of magical elements. And finally, in a conclusion part, the writer understands how to make their novel interesting, so they employ the technique of magical elements with the assistance of people's myth, tradition, and ritual practices. Both African and Indian authors use this technique in their novels, and they set their stories in an imaginary world where the line between the reality and fantasy is blurred. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you for allowing me to present my paper.
Yes, Priyadarshini ma'am, you beautifully described your topic. Really, it's a very wonderful topic. Congratulations, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Now, I would like to invite Meena. Yes, yes. Who is this?
Ma'am, actually, sorry for the interruptions. Actually, my paper was scheduled in the previous technical session, but I'm from Ranchi, and due to rain and some network issues were there. So that, excuse me, ma'am, can I present in this session? If you are allowing me to present, uh, only 5 minutes, few minutes.
Yes, you can present your paper in the end, ma'am.
Okay,
You can
okay,
present
okay,
your
ma'am.
paper
Thank you.
in the end.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Jubina
Thank you.
ma'am, excuse me. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay.
Yeah, Jubina ma'am, you already presented, right?
Actually, one paper that is my supervisor's presentation.
Okay, so you have two papers.
He also had the same problem because of the rain, due to rain.
Okay.
Two papers are
Okay,
there.
okay,
One paper
fine.
I
Thank
have
you. Thank you.
presented, but due to the
Okay.
rain, network issues was there, so that second presentation. Okay.
Okay, okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Continue, ma'am. Shaija ma'am.
Okay, okay. Yes, I would like to invite Neena Kumari, Research Scholar, Department of English, Lovely Professional University. Her topic is Capitalism and Globalization, a study of Leslie Marmon Silico, Almanac of the Dead.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes, Neena Kumari, ma'am. Okay, good
Yes,
evening,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am, and good evening, organizers and all the participants. I am PhD research scholar from lovely professional university, and my topic for presentation is Capitalism and Globalization, a study of Leslie Merman Silko's Almanac of the Dead. We all know that the present era is the era of globalization. Presently, every nation is in direct contact with the rest of the world. But if we try to see this process of globalization from another angle, then we can easily witness the parallel process of cultural fragmentation. This process of cultural fragmentation is most likely be seen in all the nations that have witnessed and faced the impact of colonization. It is a well-known fact that the root cause of globalization is colonial expansion. The process of European colonization of the world is responsible for bringing the advent of modernization and globalization. Since the beginning of colonial expedition, colonizers have always tried to justify their acts of colonial expansion. But actually, if we talk from the perspective of colonized nation, root cause of cultural fragmentation and marginalization is also the process of colonization. Leslie Merman Silko, a prominent Native American woman writer, tries to explore the process of colonial expansion and its impact on native inhabitants of America. The process of colonial expansion in America takes its origin from the time of discovery of America by Christopher Columbus. Immediately after the discovery of America, Europeans invaded America and started exploiting native residents of America. Since then, Native Americans are continuously facing the problems of being exploited and used. Silko's most prominent novel, Almanac of the Dead, published at the time of completion of 500 years of European colonization of America, traces the historical injustice faced by Native American people. With this novel, Silko also informs the readers about the violence and atrocities, but also traces the ways used by European settlers to subjugate Native Americans. In doing so, Silko links historical injustice with the present social, economic, and political conditions of the present. This action of Silko makes her novel a political rather than a literary work. In order to highlight the systematic acts of violence and exploitation, Silko exposes the capitalist system installed in America by the European colonizers. As a result of these capitalist systems, Native Americans suffer a lot. This capitalist system is meant for the benefit of high class people only. In a capitalist system, lives of poor and needy are sacrificed in the name of modernization and process. In order to provide a valid proof of violent and horrific nature of capitalism, Silko relies on Karl Marx's theory of capitalism. According to Marx, capital is dead labor that vampire-like only lives by sucking living labor. Lives the more, the more labor it sucks. Silko considered Marx to be the first person who termed his own people vampires and monsters. In order to expose the brutal nature of capitalism, Marx has caught the capitalist with bloody hands. From this notion of Marx and capitalism, Silko terms it a vampire capitalism. While rejecting the choice and needs of the masses, these capitalists seek profit from the miseries and losses of their labors and common masses. These capitalists are destroyers who take no time in sacrificing their land and labor for the sake of money. These destroyers belong to the category of those who secretly loved destruction and death raged all over the earth. The deeds and actions of various business entrepreneurs reflected in the novel clearly reflect the parasitic nature of capitalist system installed in America. A character, Minardo, owner of an insurance company, is one among them. Minardo is the finest example of those high-class Native Americans who, in favor of modernism at every step, tried to conceal their native identity. In pursuit of his dream, Minardo hates Native Americans. His rejection of native culture and acceptance of capitalist world is evident from his comment. I quote, "What did ignorant Indians know about conducting a successful business? All they wanted to do was waste money and time on village feast days, special remembrance for beloved relatives, and ailing clans people." I unquote. Further, Minardo promises human safety, but his prime importance is protection of inanimate goods. Among the list of Almanac capitalists, the finest example is Trig. Trig leaves no chance of sucking human blood. His victims, from whom he demands organs and blood, are poor, downtrodden, addict, and needy people. These victims belong to those group of people who have completely lost their sense of hope from other sources. Frick blames these victims for being easy victims. As per parasitic capitalist Frick's ideology, these victims were human debris, human refuse. Only a few had organs of sufficient quality for transplant use. Frick uses blood of these victims to make biomaterials, the industry's preferred term for fetal brain material, human kidneys, hearts and lungs, corneas for eye transplants, and human skin for burnt victims. Silko highlights correct
Excuse me, ma'am.
picture.
Sorry to interrupt you, ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
but you are out of time. Please compile it immediately.
Okay, ma'am. Such a horrific and truthful picture of colonial capitalist system clears that in a country that is ruled by colonial capitalists, the situation of poor and needy natives is unconvincingly weak. These capitalists pay no attention to the needs and choices of the masses. In such a colonial capitalist system, voices and screams of laborers and sufferers are ignorant. Even destruction of environment and nature is at its peak. There is a need to turn out the horrific voices of capitalist culture so that the voice of common masses could be heard. After realizing the need of reversal of horrific colonial capitalist system, Silko's Almanac introduces a group of revolutionaries and war refugees. These revolutionaries, in the name of Angelita, Alfio, Clinton, Yakui character Calabas, and two twin sisters, Licha and Jita, seeks the aim to overthrow the 500-year-long self-proclaimed rule of colonial capitalist settlers. In her aim of raising revolution, Angelita seeks the help of Karl Marx, whom she regards as a storyteller who worked feverishly to gather together a magical assembly of stories to cure the suffering and evil of the world by retelling of the stories. Almanac claims that with the revival of old stories and prophecies, European colonialist rule will definitely end. Similarly, Silko clears that the old people have stories that must be same, that it was only a matter of time and things European will gradually fade from the American continent. Introduction of various old prophecies such as disappearance of all things Europeans also indicate that evil faces are not immortal. Almanac thus called to recreate a traditional and decolonizing environment. Thank you, ma'am.
Meena Kumari ma'am, you beautifully described your topic, Silko's Almanac of the Dead. Congratulations, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes,
Ma'am, this is Anjali. I have settled the technical issue. Could I make my presentation?
yes, ma'am, you can. Please carry on.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, is it visible?
Yes, ma'am, now it's visible.
Thank you. A very good evening to all of you. I am Anjali Kumari Verma, a PhD research scholar from Usha Martin University, Ranchi, Jharkhand. My topic for the presentation today is English language immersion and primary school English language learners, the psychological impact. The agenda includes English language immersion, structural English immersion, non-academic ramifications, the study that I conducted in the district school, the study revelations, recommendations, and conclusion. English language immersion. Well, the very concept is very interesting. It is all about making learning environment as authentic as possible by immersing the students in as much of the language and culture as possible. And what is structural English immersion, which we refer to as SEI? Well, among a lot of definitions available, I have chosen this one from the Massachusetts Department of Education, which says nearly all classroom instruction is in English in this, but with the curriculum and presentation designed for children who are learning the language. Keith Baker and Adriana Decanter in the year 1983 first coined this term structured English immersion in a recommendation to schools to teach English to non-native speakers by using program characteristics from the successful French immersion programs in Canada. And if I may give you the characteristic features of this program, they would include the English language is the main content of SEI instruction. The idea is that the mode of instruction should be monolingual or at most bilingual, wherein the mother tongue should be used for references and help for the learners. Academic content plays a supporting but subordinate role. So, obviously, we are learning science or maybe chemistry. So, all of it would have to be conveyed in one language, and that has to be English. So, the content is here subordinate or supporting, but the main focus is on the language English. The dominant focus is language itself, its rules, uses, forms, and application to daily school and non-school situations and topics. The operant principle is that students must have a strong understanding of the English language before they can be expected to learn grade level content. So, if we may count the components of effective SEI instruction, they would include, well, teaching language acquisition and content simultaneously. So, using English as the primary form, encouraging bilingual dictionaries, providing text with vivid characters to promote discussion and emphasize on vocabulary and grammar and pronunciation. This also advocates creating an inclusive learning environment wherein students from all cultural backgrounds and experiences could be linked to the content by providing them necessary response time, etc. Also, if we differentiate to multiple learning styles by providing ample opportunities for students to use English, encouraging interaction with peers during class, providing visual aids, hands-on lessons, etc. So, this is the ideal way in which probably we can give the SEI instruction. But my presentation takes the Indian view of it, because we are also following SEI instructions in the schools. My focus would be on the government schools, wherein obviously these are on paper available. So here, let's present to you the ideal versus the real. We have poor school infrastructure. Obviously, that is due to lack of funds, poor teacher to student ratio, and if at all that ratio is present, we suffer massive teacher absenteeism. The quality of teachers is also found to be very disheartening. There are obsolete methods of learning for both the learners and the trainers. There are high dropout rates, and as a result, we have frustrated parents with their wards. I would like to bring to your focus here a study by the National Institute of Education Planning and Administration revealed that teachers spend only around 19% of their time teaching, while the rest of the time is spent mostly on non-teaching administrative work. School management committees are largely dysfunctional. Parents are often not aware of their rights, and if they are, it's very difficult for them to make their voices heard. Well, while most studies almost uniformly have surfaced educational policy concerns about the effectiveness of SEI, today I take up my presentation to acknowledge the lack of attention to research addressing the non-academic ramifications of enforcing this model on children who speak and understand little or no English. Let's take a look. The non-academic ramifications of learners include constant anxiety, escapist behavior, anger issues, conduct disorders, eating and sleeping difficulties, isolation in some cases, frustration, low self-esteem, in many depression symptomatology, and possible bleak futures are what is indicated. To present to you in a better way, the study that we did, let me present to you. A study of a district school of Ranchi. The school name is Zilla School, which is situated in Upper Bazaar, Ranchi. The sample size was 80 students, class 3, age groups 8 to 10. Qualitative research, ethnographic design, random sampling, mostly we had in-depth interview with the parents, teachers, non-teaching staff, and even the students. I would like to bring to you the study revelations. We found that the school lacks in resources to smoothly execute such exclusive programs. It appeared to have complete lack of role clarity. Multilingualism on both sides, the trainees and the trainers. SEI focuses on monolingual or bilingual mode of training, but in India, with multiple languages on both sides, it becomes really very confusing for the children. Immersion has to be a continuous and seamless process. The school setting seems pretty irregular and unsystematic. which leads to children becoming anxious as they are not very clear about the model, the way that has to be done, the content. The combination of crowded classrooms and an unoptimized curriculum makes the learners further demotivated. And this demotivation comes out in their conduct. The young learners appear completely misplaced in this academic setting, sometimes even isolated. Even most parents appear to be of least help to the children due to the different socio-political and economic factors. They are not very educated themselves, not aware, uh, sometimes even reluctant to, help the children, which leads to a family wherein it sets a depression symptomatology all around. As most teachers seem to lack role clarity, they render children majorly demoralized and disengaged, which actually lets the children suffer low self-esteem. And the study even estimates that left unattended, these children may have complex personality issues in future. So potential bright futures might turn into bleak futures. Would like to put the recommendations with the conclusion. The school must align its operations, systems, and resources in line with the contemporary modifications in the educational policies. It must ensure highly skilled, able, more importantly, enthusiastic and empathetic teachers to such exclusive programs like SEI. There must be constant, relevant training programs for the teachers as well as the non-teaching staff, because they are as important in the grooming of the children as anybody else in the school. There should be relevant workshops or trainings for the parents as well. There must be a provision of a psychologist or a counselor. And above everything else, regulatory bodies should not only be set up, but they must also function flawlessly. Thanking you.
Yes, Anjali Kumari Verma ma'am, you fully justify this topic. I will mention you presented clear picture of Zilla School, Upper Bazar Ranchi, and you beautifully described the components of effective SEI instructions, and you presented us real picture of government schools. Your topic is very good. Congratulations, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It means a lot. Am I done, ma'am? Should I invite questions on the topic at all?
Shailaja ma'am, please unmute your audio.
Oh, sorry, ma'am. Yes, next I would like to invite Srijan Raj, student, Department of English, Usha Martin University, Ranchi, Jharkhand, India. Srijan Raj, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, your topic is problem faced by the second language learner in acquiring second language through grammar cum translation method. Over to you, sir.
I would like to share my screen.
Yes, yes, sir.
Ma'am, is my screen visible?
No, your screen is not. Yes, yes, now it's visible, sir.
Okay, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. Let me introduce myself. I am Srijan Raj from Usha Martin University, Jharkhand. The subject of my presentation is problem faced by the second language learners in acquiring second language through grammar cum translation method. By the end of this presentation, you will be familiar with the barriers that a learner goes through. As you can see on the screen, I will start off with an introduction to language and grammar translation method, followed by introduction to language acquisition. Then I'll move to the barriers faced by teachers. After it, I'll be looking at the recommendations and in my presentation with a conclusion. We all use language in our daily lives, but what actually is language? In literal terms, it is the ordered arrangement of sounds and writings in human beings used to share their thoughts, ideas, and feelings. In simpler terms, language is the bridge in this presentation that is enabling me to speak and others to listen and comprehend my expressions. Language is not confined to any boundary. It is considered as, and considering the case of India, every corner of this country speaks a different language. Even the language varies in every corner of any state. No person can deny the fact that he is just confined to a single language and has not acquired or learned a second language, which generally is learned by grammar translation method. Does anyone remember when they learned their mother tongue? Did people practice and learn their mother tongue through grammar translation method, or was it acquired through the surrounding environment by watching and imitating people? What is grammar cum translation method? Grammar cum translation method is a traditional method of language learning based on learning through the detailed study of grammar and following proper syntax in order to translate sentences from native students to their target language. The grammar translation method is one of the oldest methods to learn and target language, but the main goal of this method is to enable the learners to read and write in target language using the traditional methods of translation. The main drawback of this method is it does not facilitate or cater to improvement of the communication skills. Method This method or language learning is more sought after among the teachers when it comes to teach a second language. But is reading and writing all a learner needs? Is compromising communication skills for reading and writing ability worth the trade? Language acquisition is the process whereby children learn their native language subconsciously from the language they hear around. A simple example is a child acquires a language that his or her mother and father speak and start talking before stepping into any school. Being treated as the stairway to better education, there arises no doubt why the English language is in the curriculum of almost every Indian school. Millions of students start learning the English language every year, yet a large proportion of them can't get a firm grasp on the fluent communication. Why is this so? Students can read and write in target language, but can they speak? Can they take active participation in some ongoing communication? Would the answer remain same if the target language was exchanged with their native language? I have a question for others. In which language do you think when you have to say something in the target language? Say English. Is the answer your native language or the target language? People who have acquired the language might support the fact that they also think in English, but who learn the language, in our case, English, will support the fact that they make a sentence in their mind, translate it, and then they speak. Moving on to the barriers faced by teachers and the classroom environment, teachers remain not so untouched in this aspect as well, being taught by the same method of translation. The teachers share the same history of learning this language. One of the major barriers which rise in early stage is improper arrangement of syllabus. For example, standard one books are typically in English, but the question that arises is how many English words can the same standard one kid might know and understand? The next barrier is obligation to follow an authoritarian figure. Think of the previous example. Even if the same standard one kid has the curiosity to read a book, can he read a book without the presence of someone to make him read? The language differences between students and teachers also act as a major impediment in imparting language. Regional accent of teachers act as language barrier for new learners as well. Another aspect which hinder this learning process is forceful imposition of guidelines from the institution for every student to communicate in English or target language. A language can either be learned or acquired. It never be imposed. Being abided by the syllabus, teachers are bound to complete the syllabus in a given number of class slots, thus making it difficult to impart something out of the box. Teachers are bound to teach the so-called essential elements of the syllabus. Here are my proposals for overcoming this impediment. In the early stage, picture book can help the kids acquire the target language smoothly. Students should not be forced to learn the language, and learning process should be made fun by introducing interactive sessions. Book for early learners should be made more interactive instead of following a classical literature work. Focus should be laid on introducing live interactive sessions with fellow colleagues. Teachers with the same regional background accent as students can help the learning process be a bit smooth on both ends. Focus should be laid on acquiring and learning a language rather than just learning a language through the grammar translation method. Here's the conclusion of this presentation. Acquiring and learning a second language is very important in bilingual and multilingual society. Second language learners face a lot of problems when they use the traditional grammar cum translation method as their step ladder. When it's on the learner, whether it's on the learner sides or the institution or even the teachers. Some barriers can be overcome by small yet significant step if taken appropriately. The whole thing sums up to language should not be learned only. It should be acquired as well. In order to make a tree strong, its roots should be strong as well. In the same way, if a learner has a better basic grasp of the language, its outcome will be proportional. Analyzing the current scenario, it will help. It will take time for the learning process to become acquisition friendly. The focus should be on how gradually help the learners and students pick the foreign language in a way that focuses on fluency rather than accuracy. Here are my references. Thank you everyone for listening. Please pardon me if I made any mistakes. Thank you.
Yes, Srijan Raj sir, you beautifully described your topic, and you discussed about barriers faced by teachers, grammars cum translation method. Your topic is quite interesting. Rightly said, sir, India is a multilingual country. And you also give proposal for overcoming the impediments. You beautifully explain each and everything. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now, I would like to invite Mohammad Sardar, PhD scholar, Department of Political Science, University of Jammu. Yes, Mohammad Sardar, sir. You are present? Yes, Mohammad Sardar, sir. Maybe he is absent. So I would like to invite our next paper presenter, Dr. Lankesh Subha, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Andhra Loyola College, Vijayawada. Yes, Dr. Lankesh Subha, you are present, sir? Maybe he is also absent. Now I would like to invite M.K. Subhasini. M.K. Subhasini. Yes, next is Dr. D. Joy Krishna Sara Jaikodi. And
Present, ma'am.
Arogya present? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Present, ma'am.
Okay, great.
Should I start, ma'am?
Yes, you can start, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible and your screen is also visible, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. So, good evening, everyone. My topic is non-negotiables of differentiated instruction in the ESL classroom. Differentiated instruction. Differentiated instruction and assessment, also known as differentiated learning or in education, simply differentiation, is a framework or philosophy for effective teaching that involves providing all students within their diverse classroom community of learners a range of different avenues for understanding new information, often in the same classroom, in terms of acquiring content, processing, constructing, or making sense of ideas, and developing teaching materials and assessment measures so that all students within a classroom can learn effectively regardless of differences in their ability. Differentiation of instruction is a teacher's response to learners' needs, guided by general principles of differentiation such as respectful tasks, flexible grouping, ongoing assessment, and adjustment. Further, this is divided into three categories: content, process, and product according to students' readiness, interests, and learning profile. There are four elements to differentiate: content, process, product, and learning environment. Now let's see how all these four elements can be incorporated in an ESL classroom. Content. The content of lessons in the ESL classroom may be differentiated based on what students already know. The most basic content of a lesson should cover the standards of learning set by the district or state. Some students in a class may be completely unfamiliar with the concepts in a lesson. Some students may have partial mastery of the content or display mistaken ideas about the content. And some students may show mastery of the content before the lesson begins. The teacher may differentiate the content by designing activities for groups of students that cover different areas of Bloom's taxonomy. For example, students who are unfamiliar with the concepts may be required to complete tasks on the lower levels of Bloom's taxonomy: knowledge, comprehension, and application. Students with partial mastery may be asked to complete tasks in the application, analysis, and evaluation areas, and students who have high levels of mastery may be asked to complete tasks in evaluation and synthesis. Process. To understand how students learn and what they know, pre-assessment and ongoing assessment are essential. This provides feedback for both teacher and student with the ultimate goal of improving student learning. Delivery of instruction in the past often followed a one-size-fits-all approach. In contrast, differentiation is individually student-centered with a focus on appropriate instructional and assessment tools that are fair, flexible, challenging, and engage students in the curriculum in meaningful ways. Product. The product is essentially what the student produces at the end of the lesson to demonstrate the mastery of the content. That is, tests, evaluations, projects, reports, and other activities. Based on students' skill levels and educational standards, teachers may assign students to complete activities that demonstrate mastery of an educational concept, say, for example, writing a report, or in a method the student prefers, composing an original song about the content, or building a three-dimensional object that explains mastery of the concepts in the lesson or unit. The product is an integral component of the differentiated model, as preparation of the assessments determines both the what and how of instruction delivery. Now, all these four elements can be followed the further three categories, which is based on students' readiness, interests, and learning profile. Readiness refers to a student's knowledge and skill level regarding given content. A student's readiness level might vary across subjects or content areas. For example, a student in an ESL classroom may have extensive knowledge about ancient Egypt but have little knowledge about the civilization, Indian civilization. Additionally, a student's readiness may be influenced by his or her background knowledge, life experiences, or previous learning. Teachers can determine the level at which a student is working in a given subject area by examining the results of formal or informal tests, example, standardized test, unit, pre-test, viewing a student's academic record, examining work samples, administering a student self-report measure. Next is interest. Interest refers to topic, skills, or activities that a student's curiosity or inspire him or her. Teachers can discover their students' interests by determining what topics they enjoy or what activities they engage in outside of the class. They can do so by asking the students to discuss their interests, complete an interest inventory, write a journal entry about themselves, participate in classroom icebreaker activities. Next is learning profile. Learning profile refers to a student's preferred method of learning new information or skills. Example, visually, hands-on, through deductive means, and to environmental factors that influence a student's learning. Example, small group, bright lights, no distractions. A student's profile can also be influenced by gender and culture. For example, students from cultural backgrounds that value cooperation over competition may perform better in a small group versus working independently. Teachers in an ESL classroom can assess a student's preferred method of learning by administering an inventory or questionnaire, observing the student during class. Principles of a differentiated classroom. All students participate in respectful work. Teacher and students work together to ensure continual engagement and challenge for each learner. The teacher coordinates use of time, space, and activities. Flexible grouping, which includes whole class learning, pairs, student selected groups, teacher selected groups, and random groups. Time use is flexible in response to students' needs. A variety of management strategies such as learning centers, interest centers, learning buddies, etc. is used to help target instruction to student needs. Clearly established individual and group criteria provide guidance towards success. Students are assessed in a variety of ways to demonstrate their own thought and growth. To sum up, the non-negotiable classroom are high quality curriculum, number one. Second is continuous assessment, supportive learning environment, flexible grouping, and respectful tasks. To conclude, I quote, differentiation is making sure that the right students get the right learning tasks at the right time. Once you have a sense of what each student knows and what he or she needs in order to learn, differentiation is no longer an option, it's an obvious response. I unquote. Thank you for listening.
Yes, Sheila ma'am, you
Yes, ma'am.
beautifully described about the differentiation of instructions and also explain four elements of differentiation. Your topic is quite interesting and you fully justify your topic. You also explain about the principles of differentiated classroom. You beautifully explain each and everything. Congratulations, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, now I would like to invite Zubina Rosa, ma'am. Yes. Ma'am, you want to present your paper in... Yes. Zubina, ma'am. Yes. Zubina Rosa, ma'am. Do you want to present your paper?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Hello. Can you audible?
Yes, yes. Yes, Zubina, ma'am. Do you want to present
Am
your
I
paper,
audible?
ma'am? Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Yeah. I just put. Oh, okay, ma'am. I was waiting. Oh yeah. Hello. Can you? It's okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, you are audible, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You are audible,
Actually,
ma'am.
here the whole day we were suffering. Oh, okay. Ma'am, actually here the whole day was power cut is here. I mean electricity problem is here. So that I was charging my laptop here. Sorry for the inconvenience. So directly I'm going to the presentation. So jargon. So my paper is titled as the literary representation of subjugation, reading Meenakantha Swami's novel The Gypsy Goddess. So I think all of you are very familiar with writer Meenakantha Swami. It's a prominent writer in the contemporary literature, and she was born in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, and she's known as a poet, fiction writer, translator, and activist. And born to Tamil parents, both university professors who named her as Ilavenil. She developed an early interest in poetry and later adopted the name Meena. And I'm not at all talking about the author. I'm directly moving on to the paper. So the novel, The Gypsy Goddess, is a bold and lyrical story about horrifying events, especially of a massacre. And Meenakantha Swami's powerful debut cast a spotlight on the fight of Dalit agricultural workers in the South Indian state of Tamil Nadu who are murdered by oppressive upper caste landlords. The book is based on the massacre that took place in the village Kilvanmani on Christmas Day 1968, in the year 1968. But it is not only a book about an incident that has been heavily pushed into the corners of Indian historical brutalities. It is much more than that. So you know that the caste system in India have been one of the most significant factors of social stratification. Many aspects of human conditions are deeply affected by the stratified patterns of caste system. Along with gender stratifications that define many social relations, caste system is deeply rooted in many aspects of human life. It defines the socio-cultural norms of different communities and of hierarchies. And caste hierarchy prescribes different duties, especially for women. So it is understood by now that caste and gender hierarchies together make the women's life complex, so complex. And the Dalit tribe constitute larger part of Indian society were living under brutal suppression. So my paper is, it is a detailed about the subjugation of Dalit people. So in this, how this writer Meenakantha Swami narrated the subjugation, different aspects of subjugation, and in this context, there emerged Dalitism that questioned the marginalization and exploitation of the Dalits in India. So let me skip some of the portion from the my full paper. And Meenakantha Swami is one among the most popular writers and activists who focused on the Dalit people and their daily life. The Gypsy Goddess, her book Gypsy Goddess is based on the experiences and struggles of Dalit people. And Indian Dalit literature began as a rigorous movement in the 1960s, though exclusive elements were visible as early in the 11th century. It began in Marathi literature and it later on permeated to Hindi, Kannada, Telugu, Malayalam, and even Tamil literature also. And Dalit writers initiated a realistic experience based and authentic literature which threatened the upper class hegemony in society and in literature. So the anger, sorrow, and the indomitable will and hope of Dalit protagonists were offered in a tongue which is often defamed as vulgar. And I think before my presentation, one scholar or presentator was talking about Bama and about subalternity, how the gender, discrimination and the marginalization is happening in about the subalternity, the people's life, like that. And at the Goddess, Kandaswamy projects all these above mentioned aspects and concerns of the women in the and live with dignity among the others in the society. So The writer has been persistently voicing the protest against caste, patriarchy, and class also. And here, Meenakantha Swami focuses or projects the Dalit life throughout the novel, and thus a clear knowledge of Dalit caste is necessary. So, so many incidents here, and one about the Varna system. She's describing that also, and many incidents also describing like the violence that is against the Dalit people, the people here, and a number of Kandaswami's persuasive and certainly essays have focused on topics such as caste annihilation and caste system in general. So she explores the presence of caste annihilation in India by shedding light on the plight of Dalit agricultural workers in southern India who are murdered by oppressive upper class landlords. During that time, the many ideologies like subaltern Marxist ideology was gaining popularity on this Dalit or the disenfranchised Dalit or the untouchables who toiled away on rice paddies in brutal conditions also. And similarly, Meenakantha Swami has pioneered the third phase of the Dalit literature by assimilating the Western theory and criticism in the Dalit literature. So, Dalit literature never has a subjective or individual voice, it is always collective. As Sharon Kumar Limbale, the famous writer, points out in this book, towards the aesthetics of Dalit literature. But the Gypsy goddess is filled with individual emotions and subjective preferences. Within the novel, she rejects it as a postmodern novel and cites the Swami's works, page number 164. And caste remains an important aspect of one's identity even after death. Judiciary wants to portray the landlords as incapable of avenging or effecting crime on Dalit by themselves, as if by doing so they would fall down in caste hierarchy. And the lack of space and attention given to the problem of caste discrimination and exploitation makes the novel even more relevant and imperative to convey what would otherwise have been buried under the sands of time. So the text has become a potent tool in the hands of the writer, especially because it awakens the sleeping masses to recognize the issue they are confronting with. I'm concluding, ma'am, here. Thank you so much. So much is actually so many difficulties was here, like rain was there and lightning and thundering. Because of that, power also not here. So actually, my devices are also like low battery. So thank you so much, ma'am, for giving a chance, because I thought I couldn't present the paper. So thank you so much for giving me a chance to present.
Zubina Rosa ma'am, in spite of all difficulties, you beautifully explained about all about Meenakantha's novel, The Gypsy Goddess. Tackles the really it tackles the plight of a community of Dalit agricultural laborers who live and work in inhuman conditions, coping with the unrelenting oppression and heartbreaking atrocities inflicted upon them by their ruthless upper caste landlords in the southern India state of Tamil Nadu. You beautifully explain each and everything, ma'am. Hats off to you. In spite of rain or power cutting, you do your
Thank you
presentation
so
very
much,
well, ma'am.
ma'am.
Congratulations,
Thank
ma'am.
you so much. Now I'm thank you so much for giving me an opportunity.